Hello again, everyone. In this video and the next one, I am going to show you how to do some graphics with Java. This is from the supplemental chapter 3G. The G is for graphics. And what you'll see in this video and the next one is material that can be used for the extra credit assignment. Within BlueJ, if you want to create graphical objects, such as shapes with different colors, the first thing you need is a drawing panel object. There it is right there. That's a window on the screen. So that is like your canvas or easel where you draw things. Now, that drawing panel object, there is a Java file that you need, but it doesn't just come with Java. It's something the authors of our textbook created. So what you have to do whenever you're going to do graphics is this. After you create your project in BlueJ, I've got mine right here. It's called Chapter 3G Lab. Once you create that project, you must then go to the Files area of our course in Canvas. As you can see here, here we are in the Files area. We're at the top level Files area, and the file you want to download is this one right here, drawingpanel.java. You need to download this file and then drag and drop it into your project folder where your regular .java file is. Now, let me go back to the code. Here's my code. Here are the PowerPoint slides. Okay. My project is named Chapter 3G Lab. So here I have my Chapter 3G Lab folder. Here is my Chapter 3G Lab.java file. But also in this folder, right here, is my drawingpanel.java file. So this file, drawingpanel.java, must be in the same folder as your project file. Okay. Now to create a window, which I've done here in the code, you must create an object of the drawing panel class. And you must specify how many pixels wide and how many pixels high it has to be. So for me, that line of code is right here. I'm creating an object of the drawing panel class, I call it panel, and I'm making it 500 pixels wide, and I'll also make it 500 pixels tall. Wide goes to the X coordinate, tall goes to the Y coordinate, X, Y coordinate, same kind of principle. So that's the first thing you do is you create a drawing panel object to contain all the things you're going to draw. Once you do that, you have to create a pen. But before we do that, let me explain how this works. We're going to use X and Y values just like we do in math for the old XY coordinate system. The main difference you have to understand, though, is that in math, 0, 0 is right in the middle of the XY coordinate system. Not so with the graphics. For graphics, 0, 0 in XY is the top left corner. So if this rectangle were your drawing panel, 0, 0 is right up here at the top left. And then the X values increase as you move to the right, and the Y values increase as you move down. So as an example, the point 200, 100, 200 in the X, 100 in the Y will be down here at this corner. We never use negative numbers for coordinates, X or Y, with graphics. Never. Everything's positive or 0. Now that we know that, the next thing you do is you create a pen. And we do that with this line of code right here. You create an object of the graphics class, and I'm just going to call it G because I don't feel like coming up with a creative name. And that is equal to, here's my panel object, and I'm calling the getGraphics method from the panel object. And that creates a pen that will draw things. And it's from this pen, also known as an object of the graphics class, that you will call other methods to draw different things on the screen or in the panel. You also need to import this package right here, java.awt.star. You've got to import this for the graphics to work. And the functions you can call are right here. I'll go through these briefly, but I'll show you examples of them better. There is a draw line function to just draw a straight line. You must give it the starting X and Y coordinates and the ending X and Y coordinates as parameters. There are these two methods, draw oval and draw rectangle, or RECT for short. These draw ovals or circles, and they also draw rectangles and or squares. For both of these, you must give a starting X and starting Y coordinate. You must also give it the width of your oval or rectangle. You must also give it the height of your oval or rectangle. You also have methods down here called fill oval and fill rectangle. They have the same parameters as draw oval and draw rectangle, but the difference is fill oval and fill rectangle will draw the shape and then fill in the inside of it with whatever color you've set it to be. Draw oval and draw rectangle only draw an outline. They don't fill in the inside. There is also a set color method that will change whatever color you want to use. We'll talk about the predefined colors that are within this graphics tool in just a moment. And finally, there's also one with the cute name, draw string. Yeah, this draws text. So for this method, you give it the text you want displayed and the starting X and Y coordinate, which is at the bottom left of the text. Okay, let's take a look at actually drawing stuff. So here in part 1, I've already run this program. I have done parts 1, 2, and 3, and I'm going to show you my output. Now, one other thing I did here was that I also called this set background method. Okay, this didn't really have to be done. I just felt that I didn't want a pure white background. I thought it would be a little too bright. So I changed the background color by calling this set background method. And notice how I used a predefined color. I had to say color with a capital C dot, and then in all capitals, the name of the color, which in this case is light gray. That's one of the predefined colors in this Java graphics program. But then what I did, for starters, was I have 3 draw line method calls. So the first one draws a line starting at X coordinate 25 and Y coordinate 75 and draws it until X coordinate 100 and Y coordinate 25. That one draws the first line of my rectangle. I'm sorry, my triangle right there. And then the next 2 lines draw the other 2 lines of the triangle. So the 3 draw lines give me the triangle, which is on top. Now for part 2, I have draw rectangle and draw oval. So for both draw rectangle and draw oval, I must give a starting X and Y coordinates. So here the starting X is 25, the starting Y is 100. But then I also give a width. So the width is 50. That's how wide, 50 pixels wide for that rectangle. And then the 75 is the height. That's how tall it is. So the rectangle is 50 pixels wide, 75 pixels tall. Same thing for the oval, except the starting X and Y's are different. Starting X is 100. Well, the starting Y is the same. It's 100. But that oval is 50 pixels wide and 75 pixels tall. Then I change the color to blue. So here's my set color thing. So I say color dot blue. And then I do a fill oval. And as you can see, There is my filled oval with blue on the inside. Then I changed the color to green, and then I did a fill oval. Okay, for the blue is the fill rectangle. Green is fill oval. So there is the green oval. And then what I decided to do with that oval is that I set the color back to black, which is your default color, by the way. If you don't set a color, the default is black. And then I did a draw oval with the same parameters as the fill oval. That drew a black outline around the green oval. Not that that was required, but without the green oval, let me show you what that looks like in the slides. Here. If you don't put the outline around the green oval, that's kind of glaring. So putting the black outline around the green oval actually cut down the glare a little bit for what that's worth. Okay, and then finally, I'll go to part 3. And here, as you can see, I drew, well, whatever that is, I don't really know. But I had to draw something. But let's see how I drew it. So first I set the color to yellow and then drew a fill oval. Now notice that yellow part looks like a circle. When you call an oval method, fill or draw, doesn't matter, but you make your height, your width and your height the same, you're going to get a circle as opposed to an oval. And there's your starting X and Y. Then I set the color to orange and I drew these two little squares. This one here and this one here. Those are these fill rectangle things. Now remember, for fill oval, for an oval, if you make the width and height the same, you get a circle. Similarly, for a rectangle method, if you make the width and height the same, you get a square. And then finally, I changed the color to red and did one red rectangle right across the middle of the yellow circle. Now, notice that you can see the orange squares and the red rectangle, they're kind of over the circle. The circle was drawn first in this fill oval method. And then the two orange squares. So the way this graphics program works is if you draw two things and they overlap, the one that was drawn last gets priority, winds up covering up the thing that was drawn before it. So the orange squares will cover up a little bit of the circle since the circle was drawn first. And then the red rectangle also covers up part of the circle because the circle was drawn before the red rectangle. I made sure that the red rectangle didn't cover the orange squares or vice versa, but that's generally how this works. I'll have a second video that shows you more about doing graphics. If you have any questions, please send me an email at kmuldrow@lbcc.edu.